Hey everyone, my name is Bastiansen, and a lot of you guys asked me how I pulled off a certain sequence in one of my last videos. So today I'm going to make a short tutorial where you will learn how to use the camera tracker in Adobe After Effects CC. We're inside of Adobe Premiere Pro now, and I opened up a sequence that I was working on about 8 months ago. When I was assigned to shoot the creation of a new wine bar in Tel Aviv. I will show you super quick the intro of that video because that's what we're going to focus on today. For today we're just going to focus on this first part here where I used the camera tracker to place the 2D text inside of the 3D space of that shot that you see here. And I'm doing that completely from scratch now so that you guys can follow along. And in order to do that, I made a new sequence, and for that I clicked on the new item button down here, and then on sequence I chose the digital SLR 1080p format with 24 frames per second, and I named it main sequence, and then hit OK. So that's the sequence here, and then I just that's my unedited clip for this sequence, and I just dropped it inside my new sequence, and then I have it down here. And as you can see when I play it back, I hope you can see it through the screen capture, but it's pretty shaky and it's not color corrected yet, and well, it doesn't have any text inside. So in order to do that, we're going to right click this clip in the timeline and then choose replace with After Effects composition up here. Then After Effects will just open up and it will ask you where to save that new composition, and then I will just go to a folder like you can do, like you can save it wherever you want, and I will just save it here in the tutorial folder, and I will call it 3D camera tracking comp, and hit save. Okay, After Effects is open, and as you see, the clip has the exact same duration than in Premiere Pro. And okay, there are 5 steps that we're going to do now, and this is a workflow that I figured out for myself that works for me really great. And this is not the only way you can do it probably, and maybe there are better ways, but this is how I do it, and it works okay. For me, like actually pretty good. So, and I just want to tell you what we're going to do super quick. So first we will stabilize our shot, then we will maybe apply slow motion if the shot is too long, then we will apply the 3D camera tracker, and then we will position the text inside of the 3D scene, and as last step we will probably apply a focal blur, well, like simulate a focal blur. But I will explain that later. So the first step would be to analyze our shot here. So this is our initial clip, and in order to stabilize it, like After Effects and actually Premiere Pro, they both have a very good native stabilizer that comes right out of the box. You will find it here, like you click on the FX and presets panel, and then you will just type warp, and then you will find the Warp Stabilizer down here, and then you will just drag it out onto your clip. Then it will analyze the shot, and it will stabilize the shot, and that will take a moment, and I will just skip that. If you don't know what the Warp Stabilizer is and how it works, and like if you have more questions to more basic effects and functions of After Effects or Premiere Pro, then just let me know in the comments, like on YouTube, Facebook, wherever, and I'll be happy to cover those more simple things in future tutorials, because like a lot of them can be pretty confusing in the beginning, and maybe I can save you some time there. Okay, so the Warp Stabilizer is done analyzing and stabilizing our shot, and when I scrub through now, yeah, I can see that it looks pretty good. Like, it's a lot more stable than it was before, so the stabilizer did a really good job. Sorry. And there's not too much warping going on, so if that would be the case, I would probably go here and lower the smoothness value, but since there's not much warping going on, we can just leave it at the default value of 50%. Sometimes if there's heavy warping going on and I really need a stabilization on the shot, I would even go down to like 5%, 2%, sometimes even 1%, but not here. That looks really good. What I see now is that the shot is a little bit too long though. Like, the camera drifts off here a little bit, and I would probably cut it off in half before the glass on the left side appears, or kind of like here somewhere. So okay, the next step is to apply the slow motion, and before we apply the slow motion, like between every step, basically we will just make a pre-composition of what we have, and then it's more modular. So what we do is we right click our clip, and then we say pre-compose, and then we say move all attributes into the new composition, and then we will name this composition raw plus step. And that means for me that, like, that's my own convention. That means that we have the unedited file and plus the applied stabilizer on it, and then we click OK, and then we see we have a new composition here, and inside of that composition we have another composition, that one that we just created with the raw plus step, and when we double click that, we see that inside of that we have our initial clip. That might be a little bit confusing, but it's just really logical. Like in Premiere Pro, if you're familiar with that, basically the same as nesting of sequences. Like you take one sequence and you put another sequence in the sequence, and then you have and when you double click that sequence, you're at your final clip. So it's just like layering sequences or compositions. Okay, so now that we have our new composition here, we will apply the slow motion effect. And what I like to use is Twixtor. It's a plugin which is not native, so you have to buy it probably if you want to buy it. Sorry, you have to buy it if you want to use it. Yeah, Twixtor. It's a plugin which I don't go into depth here, but it basically interpolates the motion of things going on in your scene and then creates new frames in between, so that you can have like a slow motion where there was no slow motion before. It depends on the shot if it will work. Like, the more input you give into that software, the better it works, but yeah, I think here it will work. Okay, so what we do is we take the Twixtor Pro and we drag it out onto our composition here. So, and in the effect controls panel here, we see a lot of like really confusing things, but the only things we need to change are two fields. So first we have the input frame rate. Our footage is 23.976. The second thing we want to change is the speed value. Since we want to cut the clip kind of like in half, we try it with 50% of the speed. But there's a huge mistake you can make, and I don't know why it's like that, but just follow me here. What you do if you want to have 50% on the whole clip, because the clip is actually longer to the front and longer to the end, you have to make a keyframe in the first frame that you see here in your clip, and then you go one frame further, and then you type in 50. Otherwise, the value that you type here will apply to the very first frame in your footage, and then the whole thing shifts. So what you want to do is to say, okay, this is still my 100%, I'm still here, and then in the next, it's 50%. Okay, so what we achieve now is that the clip, I let it render for a second, only goes until here. And that's exactly where the glass thing would appear. So that's a good length for me. Sorry, a little bit, I have kind of a cold here. So, okay, the Twixter looks good on it. So what we do next step, again, we make a pre-composition, say move all attributes into the new composition as we had it before. And then we just say plus slow-mo. So we have the unedited file, the stabilizer applied, and the slow motion applied. Okay, I hope you can follow me through here. Then you hit OK, and then the next step is actually the step that this whole tutorial is about. Now we will 3D track our scene. We will go to our tracker panel here. If you don't see this, you can go up to Window and then activate the tracker panel here. And then we will choose our pre-composition here and say track camera. And what it will do is basically it will analyze the shot for movement, interpret the the movement of the pixel in a way where it can understand the 3D motion of the actual camera and create a virtual 3D camera that is able to fly through that space and moves exactly in the way the actual camera moved. And that will allow you to play stuff in that virtual created 3D space. Oh guys, I really hope you understand what I mean. If not, just hang on for a second and I think you will understand in a second. Okay, the 3D camera tracker is done analyzing and solving the scene. And as you can see, we have a lot of really colorful tracking points in our scene. If you can't see them because they're too small in the screen capture here, I will just bump their size up a little bit so that you can see it better, like kind of like 400%, yeah. So if I go through the scene, you see that the software analyzed our shot and actually detects points in our 3D space. So out of the real 3D space, we actually made a virtual 3D space. And I will lower the size a little bit just to have more overview. Okay, so what we can do now, and this is the really fun part, when you go with a mouse and just hover over those tracking points, there is a target that's going to appear, and the target is going to appear always between 3 points. What you're looking for now is a very flat surface that represents like a surface in your scene. For example, the floor, which is like really straight here. Like you don't want to do something like this or like this, which you don't really understand which points it takes. So just go for something like really flat and then solid, like this here. If you don't find something good, you can just hold Shift and click 3 points, and then it will create a target like this. But you can just go like here. We have so many good tracking points in our scene that we can just go through like this and choose something solid, like, yeah, actually like this. And what you do is you right click that target and then you say create text and camera. Okay, we click on that. Then you will see that there's a text in your 3D space. And what it does now, or more what it did, it created a 3D tracker camera, which is the 3D camera which simulates your real camera. Okay, I hope that's understandable. And it created a text layer, and the text is glued on to these tracking points and your virtual 3D space. So since we have the text like on the floor, straight on the floor, and we don't want that obviously for our shot, we will just move it a little bit around. So first thing, we will rotate it. In After Effects, it's the shortcut W, or you can just click the rotate tool up here. and then we will rotate it on the x-axis. If I hold shift, it will rotate it up 90 degrees, and then I rotate it around the y-axis 90 degrees, and then it's a little bit off. Okay, that's fine. We will just fine-tune it a little bit, maybe a little bit more like this and like this. So when we scrub through, we see, hey, there's text. That's cool. And then we press V, or the arrow up here, and then we can just reposition it in our 3D space. So what we do is we just put it to somewhere where we like it. So I will drag it out in Z space. Z space? Is that an expression? I don't know. Yeah, probably it is. Here, and then I will rotate a little bit more. Something like that. And then I will scrub through again. And then we see that is pretty close. We'll shortly go back into Premiere. That is pretty close to what we see here. Okay. So let's say we will write one of Tel Aviv's finest wine bars. Actually we can write whatever we want right now. So I will just write, I wrote weasel. It really doesn't matter. So what I want to do now is to maybe reposition it so that the camera flies through the A or so. Let's see if that works out. Kind of like that. Then we go like swoosh. Yep. Yeah, that looks kind of neat. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to simulate the focal blur, and what that means, like, it sounds pretty complicated, but it's really straightforward. And as we're kind of close to the table and it's in focus and we back off from it, it will get kind of blurry, right? Because the camera moves away from it. And when the text comes in the scene, it should be kind of blurry because it's super close to the camera. And then as it goes into the distance that we had to the sharp table, kind of like here or so, it should get in focus and everything behind it should be super blurry, right? First step is we're going to apply a blur to the background, and we will keyframe that blur from kind of like from here to here, so that it continuously gets more blurry as we go away from it, like from the table. We want to have another adjustment layer. Okay, so we go into layer, new, and then adjustment layer, and then we drag down the adjustment layer below the weasel. Always remember that adjustment layer goes below the weasel. Then we drag the camera lens blur effect onto our adjustment layer. That's important. And so what we want to dial in here, it looks super complicated, but don't freak out. We basically want to click this because that makes the edges nicer of the camera blur. And okay, so what the effect basically really just does is it blurs. that's all. Okay, see, it like the background is really blurred, and only the background, because the adjustment layer blurs everything that's below it. So basically it's only the our footage, right, and not the weasel. If we would drag it down here, it would be blurred too, but we don't want that. So and we want to have it continuously, so kind of like from here, I will click the adjustment layer step by step, and I will give it a value of 0 so that it's not blurred. If you see a little bit of blur here, that's only because I put the render resolution to quarter so that it renders faster. If I would put it on full, you will see it's pretty sharp, but I will put it back for now. Okay, so the blur is on value 0 here, and I will make a keyframe, and then I go to the end of our composition and maybe put something like 20, 15, 20. Maybe like 14, something like that. Okay, so I turn it off and on, and it has a nice blur. As we move away from the table, it gets more and more blurry, right? Actually, the whole background, which is physically obviously and like not really correct, but it works for our scene here. So yeah, that will work. So the next step is to blur the weasel in the right amount. And how do we do that? It's a 3D object, as you can see here on this button. It's a 3D layer, and we're going to blur it with the function of the virtual 3D camera. And you gotta understand that this virtual camera is basically, like, it has a lot of functions of a real camera, okay? Like a lot of options that you could dial in, like with a real lens and a real camera. Probably not all of them, but a lot. So we want to activate the depth of field function and option, I should say, not function. Okay, so what it basically does is that it is linked now to a certain focus distance. And when we're super close to something which is placed in 3D space, as our weasel is, then we're kind of blurry. And when we getting closer to that focus distance, we're getting more in focus. So what we want to achieve is that kind of here where the focus shifts, like here the text should be really sharp, because it's basically the distance that we have here to the table, right? So we will make it so maybe we make the aperture a little bit higher. Like, you gotta really play around with it for that to work. So we will set that to full to see if we're sharp on, yeah, that looks pretty sharp. And when we're close, it should be kind of blurry. Yeah, maybe we just put a little bit more. Maybe we increase the blur level a tiny bit. So, and when we're here, it should be still pretty sharp. Yeah. So, okay, so basically that's it. Like, I will render it out, and then we can see the final result here. Okay, so it's rendered out, and I'm really happy with the result, and take a look. It's a very soft blur in the background, and I really like that. So yeah, looks good. Okay, so next step is like, we're actually done in After Effects. Okay, so we're back in Premiere Pro, and I will just switch back to After Effects for a second. Once you hit Control S to save your composition here, since it's linked to the Premiere Pro project, it will appear here in real time, like all your changes. So this is what we did right now in After Effects, and it's in Premiere. And we could have given it a little bit of color correction in After Effects. I will just do it here really quick with RGB curves. And I will maybe give a little bit more contrast. Let's see. No, a little bit too much, maybe something like that. And then we will give a little bit of blue shadows and soft yellowish highlights. Yeah, that looks pretty good, I think. Maybe a little bit more contrast even. Yeah. Okay, so I will put the old sequence, like the original sequence, and this sequence next to each other, and then it looks like this. That's the original one, and that's the thing we just made. So it's pretty close. In the original video, there's the next shot after this one is actually this here, and I used really just the exact same technique except of the focal blur simulation, which is, by the way, not a thing. Like, I made this up, and I have no idea actually if it's a thing or not. So be careful if you use that term. Okay, so yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks for watching, and I hope a few of you could learn a little bit something here, and just let me know in the comments if you liked it, if I babble too much, if I'm not funny enough, whatever you want to write it. I'm happy about any comments. If you liked the video, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, whatever you guys feel good with. and I put out one video per week, so I hope I see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.